Welcome to Blue Silver Cafe Presents, where we have the privilege of interviewing some of the most interesting movers and shakers in business and entertainment. I'm your host, Randall Phillips, music curator, designer, internet radio host, and DJ for Blue Silver Cafe, your ultimate source for music appreciation. Our special guest today is a lady who provides a unique service and organization for real music lovers. She is the executive director of JAZNU Music and Education. I said that right, right?
Actually, JAZNU.
JAZNU. Okay, gotcha. She is the executive director of JAZNU Music and Education, in addition to her role as jazz internet radio host and producer for WWMVLP 95.5 FM. She is also a jazz historian with her nonprofit, the Jazz and New Music and Education Organization, being charged with the mission of teaching, promoting, and supporting the sophisticated class of music called jazz. In addition to being a commentator, she is also a true biz DJ. Oh man, with skills. And she has fancy equipment that I've seen because she makes sure that you see that she's not really playing with it. She's like, that's my equipment. And I'm very jealous, by the way. So she does that, brings that equipment to her live events where she brings the pain guaranteed to make your knees fall off. So make sure you bring your Bengay, all that stuff. You're going to need it when she's done. I am super excited to bring to the Blue Silver Cafe stage Dr. Marsha Noble. How you doing today?
I am fantastic. How are you?
Great, great. It is really a privilege and pleasure to have you with us because you know that you are an important mover and shaker in the Chicagoland area, and I'm glad that I met you.
Yeah, I am glad to have met you as well. I
Awesome.
it's that timing was awesome. Yeah.
Great. So we've only known each other for a short time, but I think when we first connected, we both bonded through our mutual support of Daryl Roberts and his creation, the Chicago Hip Hop Heritage Museum.
Yeah.
Daryl is a person who is actually a personal friend of mine, and he works hard. Whenever I'm looking on Facebook, he's got either another interview with some TV station, he's creating something, he's doing tours. I mean, the guy goes crazy. Look up Daryl Roberts, better known as Artistic, on Facebook for all of you all in YouTube land. So I know that you visited his museum in its early stages when we first got together. What did you think when you went there?
Absolutely impressed. It highlighted the graduation of our music from gospel to jazz, through blues, to R&B, and to hip hop. And that is like the grandfather or the grandchildren of the gospel music. So I was impressed that our young men and women were working on keeping our history alive as we understand that our music is the backdrop of all music. And the Hip Hop Museum was fascinating because the history was on the walls.
Yeah.
Seeing those photos was phenomenal.
You know what's interesting, and that's why I'm glad that we're talking, is that I never thought about what you just said. Like I would never have tied gospel to hip hop. Um, I know it's heavily influenced by that I know of disco and a lot of funk. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that has been sampled in hip hop by, from James Brown, which I was actually listening to something the other day that said that I think James Brown didn't mind doing that because he really was one of the few artists that didn't get mad and sue people when they would copy his stuff. In fact, he made things so that people could use his stuff for hip hop. It was kind of interesting.
You know, ironically, you brought that up. I was watching his documentary last summer, and it was amazing to me how amazed the Rolling Stones were
Hmm.
to see him in his space.
Yeah.
And we have to know that That is why we are so mimicked, because we are such a gifted culture that no matter what music we are playing or singing, someone wants to copy us because we're that unique in what we do. And our music is not necessarily genres. The genres was separated by the record label so that they could understand us better and pigeonhole us. But we're not genres, we're styles.
Okay.
We don't have that. We have a style. Jazz is a style. R&B is a style. It's not a genre because our music is one. It just births, keeps birthing.
Wow.
Okay, so that's the education of who we are.
I like that.
And when you think about it, you also know that's why we like so much of the same music, and people don't understand how seniors can like hip hop.
Right.
Something that's in this music that comes from when we were in church.
Okay.
And it
So
started, in church in the fields.
I got you. So you and Daryl are both a big deal here in Chicago, and we look forward to hearing his thoughts later on here at Blue Silver Cafe. We should have him on soon. I'm going to reach out and definitely have an interview with him. So we have a lot to cover tonight, but what I want to do is get started by asking what inspired you to create a nonprofit organization that focuses on jazz music history?
Because jazz music, I was raised in a music family. My father was a jazz saxophonist who played for Count Basie and other people.
Wow.
I told him little prayers because he sounded a lot like Lester Young.
Hmm.
Mother was a jazz aficionado, but she was a music aficionado. And my mother had the beautiful people over, which is what we call the jazz crowd. And on
Did you
weekends,
meet Count Basie?
no, no, I
Oh,
did not. I did not. But my friends, the older ones, did. But of course, Um, I wasn't at that age where I could meet him because my father was traveling with them. So it wasn't like we were, able to. We were little bitty people.
right.
But on weekends, my mother would. Our excursions would be going from record store to record store to listen
Okay.
to music, to use the headphones. And my mother was the DJ in our house. And when her friends came over or family, my mother was so prolific in playing music that we had the neighbors come out on the porches. We lived in Wentworth Gardens. People would come from other side of the field just to hear my mother. Any new music that came out that was worth something, my mother had it. And we were taught that music was our heritage. And my mother began to teach us our history through jazz and gospel. And it was fascinating to see so many people come around her simply because of her music skills and her gift. She just knew every artist. She even taught us how to know the difference between a remastered cut and the original.
Yeah.
And
I
that's
like that.
that's a gift, yeah.
I want to thank you for the hard work and research that you've done, which I've actually seen. I've done my research on you and all that stuff that you've done as a service to the world and music curators like myself. Now, at the beginning of the show, we heard about all the hats that you wear: executive director, jazz internet radio host, producer, teacher, promoter, commentator, DJ. That's a lot to do week after week because this is not something you do every now and then. This is your weekly schedule. I've seen it. How do
Mm.
you manage it all and still take care of the business of life?
Well, I have learned to put everything in order. I am what some people might call OCDC. It has to be in order.
Okay.
I am a spiritual woman, but I've also found that my gift was serving people.
Hmm.
I know that the more I am on the air, the more they want me on the air. So the best thing I can do is give them the best I've got so that I can give them something to look forward to. And as I mentioned earlier, I am on the air for 2 hours. I get off the air, I take an hour break, and then I go back in the studio to record for the next week. Now, normally I used to be live, but once the pandemic hit, I began to record.
Mm-hmm.
I had to rebuild my studio because, of course, we couldn't go anywhere during the pandemic.
Right.
I bought the equipment. I used my Columbia skills, Columbia College skills. I have
Nice.
an
I love Columbia.
yeah,
Great
yeah,
place.
best in the world for education when you want to broadcast. And I learned to schedule time for myself, but because I belong to the people, they come first.
So, where are you from originally?
Chicago.
Okay. So, I know that you've been other places. I'm sure I didn't ask this, so I'm not trying to, surprise you. I'm sure you've been to New York. You have to have been to New York, as well as other places where they do jazz. So, how do you like Chicago in comparison to those other, I'm going to call New York like jazz meccas?
Okay, well, Chicago is actually the jazz mecca. New
Oh,
York,
excuse me.
let me
So,
tell
what
you,
about the Blue Note and all that stuff?
those places had their place. How
Ah, okay.
you didn't make it if you couldn't make it in Chicago. Chicago was the branding. This is where you really, because we had so many of the phenomenal artists here. We didn't, we put out some of the best from Gene Ammons to Nat King Cole, Dinah Washington to Freddie Cole to Herbie Hancock to Ramsey Lewis, and the list goes on.
So how come I've been brainwashed to think that New York is where, all of the good jazz is from? Because all of the albums, when I go through them, it's like live at the Blue Note, live at the Village Vanguard, all these different places. I mean, I don't get me wrong. I know about the places in Chicago, but when you buy, you go in the record store, you're not seeing massive amounts of stuff produced in Chicago, at least that I see. Like, what's up with that?
But see, it doesn't have to be the production, it has to be the artist's birth. Where did you get the skills from? There
Okay.
is Gene Ammons out of New York. You will never find a Nat King Cole out of New York. Though when they had the Captain Walter Diet, who trained them,
Now, what did you just say?
Captain Walter Diet of the DuSable Museum,
Oh, diet. Yeah. Okay.
in DuSable High School.
Hmm.
He is the, I want to say he groomed those artists to be what they were.
Okay.
They called what they were doing at the DuSable the shenanigans of them, and my father went to DuSable, my mother went to Phillips. And
Okay.
this is where the artists was coming out of both those two schools. So our Chicago is known for having the best jazz artists. And Chicago was a lot more laid back when artists came here. So that if you notice a lot of artists, a lot of our music talks about Chicago. You always, there's a few that talk about New York, but a lot of artists created songs to reflect their appreciation for Chicago because Chicago wasn't stiff,
Okay.
welcoming, but you could not just come here and just do any kind of jazz. It had to be authentic. It had to
Okay.
be traditional. And then you had the jazz followers who could break you over the coals if you were not authentic.
I got you.
And
So here's a question. If money were no object and you could live anywhere in the world, where would that be?
Paris,
What did you say?
Paris. I would take my gift to Paris
I've
because,
thought about that.
and let me tell you why, because most of our artists, the Nina Simone's and the Miles Davis loved it, Etta Jones loved it. Paris appreciates jazz.
Yeah.
Country used to. But Paris is where you will get that feeling that jazz is as important to them as it is to you.
Yeah.
So I've even decided that I want to be cremated and I want my son to take my ashes to Paris.
Wow. That is very interesting. So, since we're on that note of interesting things, give us a fun fact of one thing that maybe most people don't know. We want the exclusive here, Blue Silver Cafe.
Most people, but only the people in my very small circle know that I am a comedian.
That you're what?
I'm a comedian. I am very, very funny. When I was little, I used to imitate Red Skelton and Amos and Andy for my family. And my mother, uh, I could entertain her to laughter. So whenever I was in trouble, I wasn't getting in trouble too badly because I would make her laugh. And I am truly a very comedic lady. And people don't know it if you don't know me.
Okay. So, have you ever done any comedy shows?
No,
No. Okay. I
I,
got
I can't do that. But if you're ever around me and we're relaxed, you'll know.
you. Okay.
You
I
can't,
plan on doing that. Yep. Yep.
you can't
Absolutely.
else.
So here, oh,
And
I'm
I
sorry.
do. I do. It was like this in school. I made people laugh all the time. I love making people smile. And if I
Okay.
do the joke or music, I am a very, very, very good imitator. I can imitate voices in a heartbeat. And I'd love doing that. So that's the fun fact.
Okay. And we appreciate that. Fun fact. So here's a question. What is your value added proposition? And this is a question that I've typically asked people who are primarily in business, but I think it applies in all industries, including the music industry. And what I mean by the value added proposition, what is it that sets you apart from the rest of your competition? Or do you even have competition? Because I've never met anybody that does all that stuff that you do, including having a jazz nonprofit. So,
I don't know that I have any competition, but I think what makes me who I am because I'm true. I want to give you the best. Uh, I want to be what brings a smile to your face. I never do anything halfway.
mhm.
I will never. Um, I love doing what I do because it's who I am. And when I found out my niche, because I worked in corporate America, I worked in AT&T, I worked everywhere.
Okay.
I'm intelligent, but I'm more aesthetically inclined. And so when I put those two together, then you get the real Marsha Noble. You get the jazz pacemaker.
Okay. So,
Okay.
what is the favorite part? What is your favorite part of what you do? Because you
Putting
do a lot.
putting the show together and making. I think DJs must understand that first of all, when you DJ, you don't play a show for you because you can take care of you when you get home. Your show is to be for the audience. And so what you do is when you the segue is everything. You have to make sure that the mood is right because you don't want the mood to get so down until people stay down. So if you'll notice in my music, especially on my jazz, I have a segue where it's vocals, then it's instrumentals, and then it's vocals because the variations is what make people feel the music. You
You have
never,
a pattern.
yes, you never have the one. You don't. You just don't make it monotone. Make everything you do interesting. For instance, I'll play a bopping or stepping cut, and then 4 cuts later, I'll play the Watusi,
Okay.
because you want people to feel everything you do. And when they leave your show, they will say, I had a good time. It was like, it should be a party. And
Well,
that's how.
speaking of party, what is your favorite? Now, I was gonna say genre, but I'm gonna say, what is your favorite style? Since I've been educated by the doctor, what is your favorite style of music to listen to for relaxation when you're not in DJ or radio mode? You just cleaning the house up or washing dishes or whatever. What is that go to music that you do?
I don't. I have to do it all. I'll put together a playlist where you'll have gospel, because I'm a spiritual woman.
Okay,
I used to sing in the choir. And then you have to have jazz, because I want my music to keep me moving. I don't want my music to put me in a funk.
okay,
I want to feel, if I'm singing gospel, I want to sing the Chicago Mass Choir, God is my everything. Or if it's jazz, I want to hear Gene Ammons, The Jungle Soul, K Parang. Or if it's a steppers cut, I want to hear the Whispers, Welcome into My Dream, or Welcome Back Home. Whatever it is, I cannot I cannot separate and favor any music, because all music is exciting to me.
gotcha. That takes me to my next question. So I know that you DJ straight ahead jazz, or what I call the real stuff,
Yeah.
Chicago steppers music, and you also dig deep in the crates for some good dusties. But what is your favorite genre of music to DJ? Like if you were left to your own devices and somebody says, "Hey, I'm going to hire you. I want you to do a set. Go for it." What is that going to be?
Yes,
Jazz?
it would be jazz.
Okay.
It
Gotcha.
would be jazz, because jazz is everything. You can bop off of jazz. So you can't do a lot with the R&B that you can do. Jazz is multifaceted.
I gotcha.
You can. It's. I just love music. I really do.
So speaking of loving music, here on Blue Silver Cafe Presents, we always have a little musical component on the show where people either sing, we have people perform. And I didn't want to put you on the spot and have you sing, even though I know you probably could do it. But I have a surprise for you. I'm going to play a very interesting recording that I found in my musical travels. And this is something that you didn't know about. I don't think you've heard it. And I want to give you some background on it. So the recording that we're going to play is going to thrust you and I headfirst into the debate of straight ahead jazz versus what people loosely term jazz, or when WNUA was on the air, they used the term smooth jazz. So are you ready?
Okay.
All right. So let's do this. And brace yourself. You might have to put your seatbelt on. This is very interesting.
So when did Kenny G become a jazz great? Cause I never knew he was a jazz musician in the first place. Now don't get me wrong, I don't mean to disrespect Kenny or any of his devoted fans. Cause I understand that different folks got different musical tastes, and that's cool. But I also understand that jazz is a unique musical expression that should not be mocked or mimicked by loose definitions or massive misunderstandings. Now, jazz is many things. Like jazz is straight ahead, like Bird, Dizzy, Mingus, and Monk. Jazz is soft, warm, romantic, sensual, and passionate, like playing some Dexter Gordon while making love right around midnight. Jazz is spiritual, existential, metaphysical, and quite essential. Like John Coltrane, a love supreme, a love supreme, a love supreme. Need I say more? Jazz is vocal and jazz is lyrical. Like Ella, Sarah, Dinah, and Billy. So melodious, so harmonious, so rich, so true. Jazz is big, like Duke's Big Band taking the A train, B train, C train, and not stopping till they've created their own Z train. Jazz is small, like Pharoah Sanders or Sonny Rollins blowing a little secret in your ear. Shh, I won't tell. Jazz is even strange, bizarre, out there. Like some of them wild, mystical, cosmic places Sun Ra and Ornette Coleman like to go. And jazz changes again and again and over again. Miles showed us this, from bebop to kinda blue to bitches brew to time after time. Again and again and over again. Yeah, jazz is change and change is jazz. But no matter how much jazz changes, jazz is jazz. No matter what, jazz fills in all kinds of space. Jazz improvises and innovates. Jazz feels, moves, touches, and soothes. Jazz floats and digs and climbs and screams. Jazz is as is jazz. Jazz is. Jazz is all of that, and all of that is jazz. And if jazz ain't all of that, it just ain't jazz. And if jazz ain't jazz, it ain't fusion jazz. Cause that implies that jazz is somehow fusing with something else. But that ain't happening. Cause jazz is like black folks. If jazz mixes with anything else, that something else is jazz. It's the one drop of jazz rule. And it don't sound like Kenny G or any of that stuff they be playing on the wave. It's mixed with jazz at all. So it ain't even fusion jazz. It's more like confusion or confusion. And that ain't jazz. Cause jazz is not jazz. Jazz is as is jazz. Jazz is. Jazz is all of that, and all of that is jazz. That's jazz, and jazz is just that. And guess what, y'all? That ain't Kenny G.
Oh, that song cracks me up so much when I play it. So, Dr. Marsha Noble, as our resident expert, where do you stand on the debate of straight ahead jazz versus smooth jazz? The first great debater that I heard on this topic early on in my DJ career was Wynton Marsalis, and he goes in hard on people who use that term jazz on everything. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, let me just correct that misnomer. The smooth jazz phrase was coined by Denise Jordan Walker. She wanted to give NUA a little push, but it didn't work because she ran into the real jazz people, and we told her that's not happening. Jazz has never been smooth. Jazz is anything but smooth. And Kenny G is not a jazz artist. I brand those artists new age music.
Gotcha.
You will not be jazz. Because
okay. I've actually heard that Kenny G, he doesn't call what he does jazz either, because a lot of people would approach him and challenge him. He's like, hey, I'm just trying to do my thing. I don't call myself that. But As a disclaimer, I will rock Kenny G on Blue Silver Cafe or at a live set, probably during cocktails or the dinner hour, but I personally don't call his type of music jazz. If somebody comes up to me to the DJ stand and say, "You got some jazz?" I challenge them. "What do you mean by that?" And then they'll say, I say, "Name somebody." "Miles." "Okay. All right."
And listen, I agree because Kenny G, I have Kenny G's music.
Yeah. And I'm not mad at Kenny, just, because a lot of the record companies, they always approach me and they, when I'm putting stuff out, they're gonna approach me on this too. So I'm letting you all know, don't get me. Go ahead.
Write me, I will take them on.
Okay.
The thing of the matter is just because you call it something doesn't make it so. As my mother used to say, you cannot make something what it isn't, because there's a true identity of what it is. And when you measure it to that, it will show itself.
Yeah.
And that music, it has a place. It's good music. It's just not jazz.
Yeah.
The reason why they wanted to call it jazz was because it gave it some type of sophistication, and it allowed us to be befuddled into thinking that it was jazz, because most people that wanted to call it jazz were using horns. And it's supposed to be significant for jazz, but that's not jazz.
Now, one of the things I noticed, I don't know if you've ever had an opportunity to visit this store when it was in business. I think there was like 3 or 4 locations. I worked at a store called Discount Records, which the one I worked at was in Homewood.
Yeah.
And have you ever been there? Okay. So what I noticed when I was working there, and primarily my reason in working there, because they don't really pay any money at the time, everybody knows that, was as a DJ, I wanted to get the exclusive stuff and the stuff from the record companies and just be in the mode of music, right? So one of the things that I noticed when they would slather that term jazz on everything, it seemed like a marketing tool to boost sales. And yeah.
Because that's let's put it this way. There are Louis Vuitton purses and there are knockoffs.
Yes.
Knockoffs. Okay?
Yeah.
And when you compare it to the Sonny Rollins or the Coltrane or the Press, there's a distinct sound that's just, first of all, jazz is innovative. They are creating these sounds. The sounds that you hear from these people are normally the same note over and over, played differently.
Right.
You can hear that. No jazz artist ever played his song or her song the same way twice. Just doesn't happen.
Right. I've heard that. Yep.
That's because that innovation gets into them and they deviate, because when you create something, what you do is perfect it.
Okay.
And that's what jazz is. Jazz is constant perfecting of that song. I have so many versions of the same song by the same artist because I like that. And I hear people call me and say, I never knew that was a version. That I don't know where you get your music from. And I tell them, I search, I go out, I shop. And it's our history. It's who we are. And if you don't know jazz, you don't know who you are. Because jazz is what we created. No one can take that. No one can mimic it. And
I appreciate that.
Doesn't know jazz because they don't know themselves. Because if you know who you are, there's some jazz, you'll find that you'll like it. You just have to be exposed to the right jazz.
Thank you for sharing that. So one of the things that we do on our show at Blue Silver Cafe is we want to make sure that all of the artists, their information gets out there so that you can actually pick up their material, because we know that streaming is good, buying is better. So support the artist. Speaking of which, that piece that we heard earlier, that was spoken word artist D Knowledge with the track Jazz Is from his 1995 album, All That in a Bag of Words. And I don't know if he is still doing his thing because, like I said, I got that in 1995 when I was working at the record store. And for all the record companies checking out what we're doing, on there it said promotional use only. That's what I'm doing. So don't ding me on YouTube. Put you in a headlock. So, what did you think of that track?
I liked it. I liked it a lot because Gloria Lynn has a song called The JAZNU. Betty Carter, Jazz Ain't Nothing But Soul. Louis Armstrong, I Love Jazz.
Okay.
You hear those versions, and I'm going to send them to you. I'm going to send you all three. I'm going to share this with you. You will see what they was talking about. Jazz is the saxophone cussing the trumpet. Betty Carter.
Did you say cussing?
Yes, that's that's the lyrics of the word. The song. You have got to. I will definitely. I'm going to send this to you after this is over, and I want you to understand and see exactly how they describe jazz.
Okay.
The
I
jazz
like that. Now,
music,
speaking of that,
yes.
are there any new straight ahead jazz artists that you are following? Because that's something that I want to know about. Like, I got a lot of work to do to find the people who I need to get up on, but there's also new people. In fact, there's a new lady. She's young.
Samara
Who's singing. What?
Joy.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
she
I
is.
haven't checked her out yet, but I've seen like little clips on the internet. She seems like she knows what she's doing.
I play her on my air. She's on my show.
Okay.
She is what Sarah Vaughan would smile about. She is what the progenitors of jazz would approve. The Ellas, and the women in jazz back in the day, Gloria Lynn, Ella Fitzgerald, Billie Holiday, Dinah Washington, they were all close.
That's interesting.
They were very close and they never tried to compete with each other. They knew their place. You have your place in this world. Your place is not in my footsteps, it's in yours. This is why when we are out of line or out of step, it's because we are out of ourselves. And when you're in music, you'll know what music is yours because it'll do your soul, you'll feel it. And my soul feels all of it. I don't have a differentiation because when I sing in choir, when I was singing in the choir, it was as if I was singing jazz because there was no separation of our music, and our forefathers and our ancestors who were religious and spiritual, they wanted to separate that because they wanted us to, well, they were told that jazz was sin music. That was when it was black. When
Okay.
it became accepted by whites, then it was spelled Jazz. But when it was sin music, it was JAS in New Orleans. So it was only played in the red district. Because
Okay.
this
You
is
going deep. Yeah.
I know
So
my mom
I got a few more questions, and we have definitely this is a special show because you got a lot to share. I love that, but I want to ask, as a music curator like yourself, there's certain songs that also as a music curator, not as deep as you, but there's certain songs that if it's up to me, I just won't play because it doesn't fit my mode. Like when you listen to a song, how do you determine if it's good enough to add to your personal or your radio playlist?
it has to touch me. It has to go to my soul. Because my soul is my gauge. And our music is soulful. Everything we do is soulful.
Is
And
there any certain elements of that soul? Because I mean, I've heard the term soulful, but what would that mean? Like if you're listening to something, like is there certain tones or instruments that you go, oh man, that's it. I need that.
It's just the mind and the body all feels music. It's a syncopation.
Okay.
And what happens to you is you'll feel something different when you know. And I can hear the first 8 bars of a song and know whether or not I'm going to go through the rest of it.
Now, do you know how to read music?
Yeah. But that's because I've never tried,
Yeah, me either.
but I probably could if I tried, but then that would add
Yeah.
more to my plate, and I don't want that.
I've thought about playing either guitar or trumpet, but I'm lazy.
Yeah. And you know what? And that's okay because the incentive is in you. It's just a matter of when you feel like actually putting that incentive to the motion.
Yeah.
That remember, anything you think about doing is the start of it.
Yeah.
That's the seed. And the seed can't do anything unless it is pushed in the dirt and stomped on and rained on, and then it comes out as a tree or a flower. So appreciate every seed you get because it's working.
I feel like I'm in a music massage right now.
Well, I'm doing my job. I love what I do and I do what I love. And that's what I say on the air. I love talking music. I do.
So, speaking of that, which because you are the right person to ask this question because this is important to me because I think this points to character. Like, what straight ahead jazz artist or group that you personally know of has the best work ethic? And what I mean by that is we've seen a lot of movie depictions of people when they express their art in jazz. In fact, I had an opportunity to see the Bird movie produced by Clint Eastwood, which showed. I'm gonna say it showed his improvisation and his growth, but it showed a lot of the side that took him away from where he needed to be, which kind of detracted from his work ethic. So, based upon what I just said, like what straight ahead jazz artists or groups has or had the best work ethic that you know of?
I would have to say Duke Ellington first.
Yep. When you said that, I had a picture in my mind because he was impeccably dressed and always took care of business. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Say Duke Ellington. And Duke Ellington was very, very unique but he was methodical. And Duke Ellington, from the biography that I read, one of them said that he was so intuitive that he would go and get in the bathtub and have a pint of ice cream. And he would create in that mode. But he was very, very disciplined. And he was respected. As a matter of fact, that is one of the things that jazz people are most respected for, the way they dressed,
Yeah.
because that's to impress the crowd. Whereas the crowd in the other music dresses to impress the artist, as if the artist would see them.
Okay. That's what I like that. That kind of puts me. Let's say it reminds me of everything that I've ever seen that depicted jazz artists. They always were dressed like you said, and I like the culture that they created in, sitting in with each other. In fact, the guy that taught me how to DJ, he kind of kept that going where like other DJs would come check us out and he'd be like, hey, you want to sit in? And he would just say, go for it. Where a lot of DJs, which I compare a good DJ to a musician because of the I'd say the curating selection process. If you really know what you're doing, it's nice to see, you know, like Miles Davis footage of him and Coltrane and the band there, and then somebody would be like, "Oh man, somebody just came in." I'm thinking of Who am I thinking of that plays trumpet with the big jaws?
Dizzy.
Yes, Dizzy. Dizzy Gillespie just came in. What's up, man? Hey, we got Dizzy Gillespie just came in the door. Come up on the stage. That is so cool because a lot of times, especially guys, they'll be like all full of macho, like you're not gonna get on my stage. But those guys were known for doing that. I like that. That's good stuff.
That's exactly why the jazz is so together, because
Yeah.
they were a family. Um, the when I was working on my my BA, I interviewed one of the Tuskegee Airmen,
Mm.
and it was authentic. It was so real. And one of the things he shared with me was that Dave Brubeck was so into his jazz band, who were African American, that he refused to ride on the train because his band was riding in the back of the train. And so he would go back in the back with them, and then they decided they would start driving. That's the continuity of the jazz. The jazz musicians were like a family. They Dinah, it was said that Dinah gave clothes to Gloria Lynn, and Ella nurtured Billie Holiday. This,
Wow.
these
I
are
thought Billie Holiday was before Ella. I guess I was wrong.
Billie is younger than Ella.
Oh, okay.
Sis, Ella, that big sis, and the, the history of our music and our jazz artists is phenomenal. I have tried to study all of them as much, but my parents would teach me what I didn't know.
Hmm.
I was honored that when Stanley Turrentine died, I was the first DJ, jazz DJ in Chicago, to put together a show for him, to the point where the Defender came out and I made the front page.
Okay. I
I
like that. That's good stuff. Here's a side note that just came up, just real quick. Now, what you just said about Ella and Billie Holiday. So what I've noticed, and this is why I had that mindset. Now, this is a little technical, so if you want to just move past it, that's fine. But I've always wanted to ask somebody this. Now, I know based upon documentaries that I've seen, Ella in her sound and as far as the engineering, a lot of that was really improved when she was actually brought to Verve Records. Billie Holiday stuff, when I've listened to that, I really it seems like the engineering isn't as good, and maybe I haven't found the right records, but Ella stuff usually is impeccable as far as sound quality. Billie Holiday stuff sounds like it's like really old, which is why I thought she was older. So what is it that I'm doing wrong to not get the good sound that I'm looking for? Because everything that I've heard, unless that's like being thrust upon me, it seems kind of gravelly and like far away, like they didn't really have good mics back then. What's up with that? Dr. Marsha Noble.
Well, you know what? You might have the a remastered brand of something, but I have some very original sounds of Billy, and it's not gravelly at all. I'll share this with you so that you'll hear that, because Ella was one of the most prolific uh, singers, because Ella scattered.
Right.
Scat, yeah, scatting was the onomatopoeia that we brought in from Africa.
Mm-hmm.
That was our language. This is why I don't understand why they say we were lazy, when we can't build America and be lazy. And if we were lazy, you wouldn't come and get us. You didn't go get nobody else.
Okay. So,
Of course, I'm sorry.
right. So, what advice would you give to the new generation of jazz listeners? And that's one of the things that I enjoy about Facebook. A lot of people have different ideas about social media. A lot of young people say, "Oh, we don't use Facebook. We're on Instagram, whatever." But I find a lot of interesting people like yourself that are on uh, Facebook, as well as the new generation of jazz listeners. I didn't realize how many people are going to school to learn how to be involved with jazz. That being the case, what advice would you give to them as far as what they should be listening for?
Okay, first they must get to know the progenitors of jazz, the ones who brought it out. See, you cannot like jazz and not know jazz.
Mm-hmm.
So your education has to start once you find the artist, read about the artist, learn about the artist. Don't let somebody tell you about the artist. You have your own personal knowledge of that artist. Then you will begin to tweak your gift in accepting the music and understanding it. Miles Davis wasn't always understandable to people because they weren't that far. But
Mm-hmm.
what he did, he brought his jazz to the level where they could. So it's just a matter of keep listening to the artist to find something that you can relate to, and then you'll be able to understand the way they did, the bebop or
Okay.
because jazz is always educational. You will never stop learning from jazz. You'll always hear something different each time you hear. And then the artist, when you hear a song that's different and it's the same song, that's their gift that they have perfected. And people learning about jazz, you can't learn about the music and not the artist. That's just no. And then know the era, the time it was, because all of that plays an intricate role in your understanding why we do what we do.
So it sounds like you're saying that we need to go back into the history and
Absolutely.
then come forward. And speaking of history, you being a historian, we appreciate that you shared with us. I mean, we've actually gone into quadruple overtime, which is good. Hey, things happen. What would it be the best way to show you support for what you do? Should people tune into your radio show, spread the word about what you do, connect with you on social media, join your mailing list, or buy tickets to your events? Like,
All
what's
of
the
the
best way?
above. All of the above. But first, know
Ding,
me,
ding, ding.
listening to the show, listening to the shows because you'll get the education that you want.
Okay.
And the reason why I was reason I added R&B is because I'm working on a history of the Chicago Jazz Corps when jazz was jazz in Chicago. And I want our young people to know why there is R&B, why there is gospel, why there is blues, and how those styles make us all. We are a family of different sizes. You've got a light grandmother, a dark grandfather, a fat aunt, a skinny uncle. That's the family. And we love them all the same. We got to stop letting people separate us because of the music. The music is what we learned from. Remember, WVON had played it all. It was a station that families listened to because you can be assured that something was going to come on that blues lovers would like, jazz lovers would like, boppers would like, Christian folk would like, and then it just made listening to the radio a family thing. But when they separated us and did radio genres, so you got to go in the other room to listen to your music. I got to go outside because mine is too loud, or you got, and we can't do that. Our music is
Gotcha.
okay.
So you have a lot to share, and unfortunately, our time is limited. I wish we had like all day because if we unpack all of the different stories that you have, I'm sure we could do that. But for those who want to learn more about you, give us your website.
Okay, my website is www.jaznu.org.
And pronounce that again.
As in you, it's in you. And my
Got
jazz,
it. I'm glad you did that because I was
yeah.
like JAZNU. I messed it up.
No, no, you're not the only one. And we've trademarked that. My logo and my name is trademarked now because when I was working on my master's, someone stole my name and
Oh,
my likeness.
huh.
Use it now because I have attorneys. I didn't realize I was so special to someone, and they wanted to sell me back my blog, my Jazz and You blog, for $10,000.
Wow.
My picture, my blog, I wrote it, and they took it. Okay. When it's time for me to come get it, I'm coming.
Right.
So I would appreciate if people would become a member of the JAZNU organization so that I can teach what I know before I leave. I want
Okay.
you to listen to the shows and understand the music that is our heritage. And other cultures should understand why we are such an imitated group of people. We're powerful. Black is
Yes. What social media platforms are you on? I know you're on Facebook because that's where we met, but are you doing anything else as far as social media?
I'm not on I'm on Instagram. I was on as a journalist, I was on Twitter,
Hmm.
but when Elon Musk took over, I didn't want that. I didn't want that association.
Okay. You get ready to get me in trouble. So, um, and I appreciate you speaking your mind. So, with you're actually on YouTube because I checked you out. You got some videos on there, and this video is going to actually be on YouTube as part of your collection. So, how do people get on your email list for upcoming events? Because you said that, and we know that you do your radio show and also you stream that on the internet. But for the stuff that you do live, how can they get on that email list?
Just send me an email, jazzpacemaker@aol.com.
Nice.
Add your name, and I will send you the e-blast of our events. And I will include you because I am the jazz pacemaker, because if you don't have a heart, you got a pacemaker.
I like that. You
So,
you are a that's why you like hip hop because you got cool stuff that you do. I bet you could rap too. We're not gonna do it today because I know you might bust the rhyme out for us, but
tell you, I have had a wonderful time with this interview. This has truly one of my best. Thank you so much for allowing me.
yeah, yeah. Hey, listen, we're not done yet. So we know that you stay busy with your nonprofit and your radio show. Do you have anything coming up that you would like your millions and millions of fans to know about?
Yes. And that is, I was given a gift by God to put this event together called Jazz, Beard, and Chess. At the time, I didn't know. It was before the pandemic. I said, okay. Now I found out that jazz bid, well, let me just say this. Our family, whenever they had people over, they played jazz and they played bid whist. And some of the older people would play chess. However, I've learned in my research that bid whist was created by the African American. We brought it over from the slaves in the 1800s. And it is controversial because they wanted to call it, they did call it Black Bridge.
Hmm.
So there's some very wonderful education about the bid whist. And now it's being played in colleges at HBCU. So I'd like to go and talk to our young people about why we do what we do. And jazz, bid, and chess is one of those historic moments where we need to talk about, because so many people play bid whist and have no clue that it was created by us, the people who they say couldn't count.
Gotcha. So this is our we're wrapping up with this. Let me ask you, who can our audience connect you with to assist you with your future projects or goals? I know you and I, before we got on the air, we had a chat about somebody that you were interested in,
Yes.
which I think I'm gonna look into that to see if we can do that for you. But anything that anybody listening, you say, hey, if I could do this, that would be awesome.
Yes, if I could do music scores for Tyler Perry, I would put
Mm,
our music in his movies. That would blow his mind.
okay. So you
That's
want to be
I want
a
to I want to
do
do
the
this.
music score, like kind of who does that? Terrence Blanchard.
Yes. And
Yeah.
I to the people I play. Yes, I want to do that for Tyler Perry because Tyler Perry has Black movies that our music should be there. And I know I would be a blessing to him. So that's my joy.
Okay. So what is the best way for people to get in contact with you? They want to, have you do a gig or be a part of their event or speaking engagements, any of that stuff. What's the best way?
Best way to do it is to email me at Jazz Pacemaker. That's JAZZPACEMAKER at AOL.com. That's all you have to do. I make it that
Awesome.
simple. Yeah.
So thank you for chatting with us today. This was fun and we really appreciate it.
Thanks so much. I really enjoy it. And I look forward to having you guest DJ for me at the Jazz Bit and Chess. We do it every third Saturday at Ellis Park in Chicago, 3520 South Cottage Grove, from 12 to 4. So it's senior hours, but it's the best hours of the day. So please join us and bring a friend.
Sounds good. So contact us and join the Blue Silver Cafe VIP list at bluesilvercafe.com. Connect with us at all of our Blue Silver Cafe social media at Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. You can also create an account and follow us at mixcloud.com/Blue Silver Cafe. And you can also join us for Blue Silver Cafe this Monday, November 13th from 6 to 10 p.m. Central Time, where we dig deep in the crates to play the best music of your life and provide homework for your favorite DJ. I'm Randall Phillips, and we'll see you next time at Blue Silver. Good night.